What's up, everyone? I'm back again. This is part two. I decided we're gonna do part two of this. All right, let's get this done. So, come here.
The people that are coronavirus skeptics, I know that the plant destroyer did hit my farm and it did take out my trees that were extremely healthy. They got the best of the best and they're gone. And so what does that bode for our food supply?
Right, right. On top of the what Project Scopex, the stratospheric aerosol injection to dim the sun, block photosynthesis, and so on, so many other areas.
Yeah, they're
But when
trying to
you
block
say
the sun.
disability, you mentioned that term twice so far. I'd like you to speak more about this disability, and it brings up the fact that we know now documented that this Wuhan coronavirus attacks neurology, and I know people personally who have lost their sense of smell permanently. Some people lost their sense of hearing. Some people are suffering brain damage. So is part of the disability an actual kind of neurological lobotomy to where people can't even process anymore? They can't even think to resist? Is that part of it?
Yeah, so it is a biological chemical neural weapon. And I just filmed a breaking news story giving the evidence of that with clips from the people that head that up in their own words.
Is that something you're releasing as a video, or how could people see that?
Yes, it will be on my Patreon. I'm going to make it public on YouTube. And I will also be putting the transcript so that people can have that and share with their friends and their family. I would assume it will be up sometime later today.
Okay, make sure you launch a Brighteon channel too, because YouTube will get you sooner or later. I'm surprised Patreon hasn't banned you yet as well. I'm sure
Yeah,
that's
watch
coming.
this part, but we
Yeah,
gonna move
we're
on.
actually already there. They are have decided that the only lives and creators that matter are Black lives. And not even though I work very hard on, and give my patrons a lot of content, they are not happy with that. So we are going to be join the internet refugees.
Well, welcome to the refugee camp
Yeah, we already saw
of
this
the
part,
internet.
but
But
we gonna move
our
on
camps are
into
actually
the bigger
friendly
picture here.
places
But we
versus the
gonna
FEMA
watch all the way
camps that
through
are
this
coming
time.
for the masses. Give us a description of what this is going to look like as the food supply craters are everyday Americans. I mean, remember with the thousands of cars lining up for the food banks back in March and April? Are we going to have like massive refugees of millions of Americans streaming into the FEMA camps voluntarily to say, feed me and I'll agree to whatever? Is that what it's going to look like? I mean, you tell me. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth here.
So basically, there were several objectives after Hurricane Katrina. And one of those was a bill that was spawned after Hurricane Katrina to establish public reception centers at your local Walmart or whatever large facility. It could be Costco, whatever. And it was set up in case of a nuclear event, but it could be any disaster. It could be a pathogen, it could be an earthquake, it could be a hurricane. And people would go, they're conditioned to go. Look, if they've already got people conditioned to stand outside of, like our Costco had SWAT team people. They put pallets to block the door, so you had to go single file in. You're required to wear a mask, and people were like lined up around Costco, so you're already conditioned to do that. Like it will be a brainstem reaction that when this happens, the next wave hits, that people will be
Excuse me.
starving. The food supply is going down. Last August, I warned my followers that it was the first year of famine, and everybody kind of looked at me like, "Oh, you've got a screw loose. We can go to the store. We can get anything we want." And I said, "Well, the UN just put out a report that they wanted to sell food by the 1/1000th of a calorie, and DARPA, which is the Black Op military sector, wants to sell food by the molecule." So after this next lockdown that we are expecting, I would say within probably 8 weeks, your food supply is going to evaporate, and they want to change your behavior. And they're right now, you've got a little bit of freedom. Get what food supplies you can, get what seeds you can, because what you have when you go into that lockdown is what you're going to be having unless you completely kowtow to the global agenda.
You know, you're absolutely correct about that. I've been growing potatoes, by the way, and
Yeah,
talking to my
we already
mom on
saw
the
this part.
phone. She's
I want
giving
to
me all the
skip it
best tips
and
and
get to
tools
the
about
good
growing
part.
potatoes. She grew potatoes. Her mom taught her and so on. And it's passed down generation to generation how to be self-reliant. I've hatched like 40 chickens this year. They're going to be laying eggs pretty soon. So I know I'll have at least eggs and potatoes like that. At least I'm not going to starve, right? But the average American is setting themselves up for starvation. They've only got a few days supply of food. And you even said during the Dave Hodges interview, no, I'm sorry, it was Dave that said this, that he knows people, FEMA came to their house and demanded
Let's
to
see
look in their
something.
cupboards and take a survey of all their food supplies. And I know farmers
I
in
don't really
Central
want to
Texas
skip it.
who during the big hurricane, I think it was Katrina, when there was a mass exodus across.
That are into fishing and aquaponics and that type of thing. And there's also a diagnostics and vaccination. But during that, so what the UN did is put out a mandate and said, everybody in the world needs to have traceability. At the time, it was called, in 2005, it was called the National Animal Identification System. Had three parts to it. One, that all private property would become federalized. The second was that all life on your property had to be electronically identified. And the third was 24/7 surveillance. And you say, well, how did, that doesn't affect me. I live in an apartment or whatever. Well, the definition to become federalized and become an asset of the government is to have potential to earn $1,000. And even a disabled person, even a person living in an apartment has potential to earn $1,000. So basically, you are an asset of the federal government. And that is how they want to trace all the food supply. And they did this after Fukushima too. They went to all the doctor's offices, and anybody that had supplements with iodine, they said, how many supplements do you have with iodine in it? Because they wanted to, this is what they do. So they gather their assets and then they put them in the database, and then they tap those resources when they need them.
Wow, what you're saying is pretty frightening to a lot of people. And it reminded me, I wanted to add that just yesterday, my own staff told me that our commercial suppliers, for many of our food resources that we sell at Health Ranger store, like rice and lentils and beans and so on, they are telling us now they can't fulfill our new commercial orders. They're only able to send us partial orders. And this is June. We're not supposed to be in the middle of a food crunch here. This is supposed to be actually a plentiful time, after the spring harvest and into the summer harvest and everything. Rice is being harvested, in California, places like that. We're being told now that we can't get the orders that we want. And as a result, we're having to start to order now for what we think we're going to sell on, around Black Friday and Thanksgiving. So we're having to plan months ahead. And if the people out there aren't planning months ahead, if you're not planting food right now, you're gonna be in a world of hurt. And how is it? My question to you though, Celeste, is how does FEMA run that whole idea of, hey, we're here to help you. If you want food, come on in and consent to this FEMA camp. How does that exchange actually work? How do they run that on the streets?
So you would go to the public reception center, then that's where you would be processed. It's going to be different than the
Listen
concentration
to
camps
this.
of World War II, because we basically are in an automated technocracy. They've got synthetic beans, they have robotics. They really don't need a large population base. So one of the reasons that I left the agency is they have this plan that if you do not believe that the government is God, then you would go to one of these processing centers briefly. If you could be re-educated, they would do that. Although there isn't much need for humans, that the globalists really are free to admit that there's no room for humans anymore. It's our duty to expire so that to make the planet, to atone for our sins, basically, of what we've done to the planet. And so you will basically be killed. And there are two different humane methods of killing. And one of those
That's
is
crazy,
gassing,
y'all.
and the other method is decapitation. And they've been doing all these experiments, decapitating thousands and thousands of mice, recording their brain waves, all of that, to justify decapitation as a humane method of euthanizing people.
You're talking about guillotines.
Guillotines, yes. And if you think that there's no evidence, so back in between 2000 and 2005, I collected a lot of military documents, like such as, because they were really studying the issue of guillotines and how to build a better guillotine, this type of thing. So I have those documents.
So, just to translate this, are you saying that people, as they're facing starvation because of the collapse of the food supply, will turn themselves into the FEMA camps? They'll be processed, registered, probably, microchipped, right? Whatever they're going to do, they need to do to track you. And then at some point, you'll be sorted out into one of two groups, like a group of maybe people that they might be able to use, and then the people that they've got to get rid of, and you're just going to be led into a guillotine and decapitated, and then that's it. That's actually how FEMA is going to process people.
Have you ever seen the movie Sophie's School?
No.
So this is about a young girl and her brother. She was probably 18, and they were passing out anti-Hitler propaganda. This is a true story. It's called The White Rose, and they were caught when they passed some anti-Hitler propaganda out at the college, and they had a puppet trial, and they were executed. And I believe that every person in America needs to see Sophie's School. It is on YouTube. It is free. It will prepare you for what's coming.
And so this was set in the Nazi era. Was Sophie a German citizen then?
Yeah, she was German, and the movie is in German with English subtitles, but it's very easy to follow.
Okay, all right, good choice. Let's throw in a little bit of a video clip of Sophie's Gold there, just to give people an idea of how they can see that movie. Tell me about, does FEMA actively have plans for gun confiscation?
So that was another objective from Hurricane Katrina. So as you know, they did confiscate Americans' weapons. And so, yes, that is just moving forward and gaining momentum as, the liberals march forward.
What do you think the level of compliance will be from the people? And I've heard you speak about this before, how shocked you are that most people are just sheeple at this point. They just go along with anything. But
That's true. People are sheeple. People are brainwashed and programmed, indoctrinated.
Gun confiscation, like, hey, we'll knock on your door, turn in your guns, and people just say, okay. Is that what they think is going to happen?
Yes, and unfortunately, the numbers do pan out. But 3% of Americans will hold to their gun rights, and 7% may have a gun, think about it, a person may sell it, wishy-washy, will they ever use it? Probably not sure. And 90% will do nothing, and the government knows this.
Well, 3% is still 9 million Americans, roughly. That's a lot of armed citizens. I would imagine those 3% pretty heavily armed. At least in Texas they are, because I know those 3%. That's still, they're going to have a fight on their hands, even if it's only 3%. What do you think?
So yes, I would say if everybody was healthy, but we've got these neural weapons, we've got chemicals, we've got biologicals, we've got all these things. Really, when we wake up every day, there is so much amassed against us and arrayed against us. All these rebellion against tyranny probably is unlikely because as soon as that starts happening, they're going to just open the faucets of other bioweapons and
I
mark
told you
them
it's a
with
virus,
those
and that's
types
what
of
the
things and
coronavirus
things like
is.
taking out the power and that type of thing.
Why you think I
Yeah,
never get the
you're
shot?
definitely right.
Because I
And you
know
mentioned you grow some of your own food. What kind of things do you do to stay healthy and protect your own neurology from all of these attack vectors?
So the first thing that I have is a good spiritual walk. And the second thing is I am dogmatic about growing my food. I grow heirloom. I grow 50 different kinds of tomatoes, 100 different kinds of peppers, crops from around the world in different time periods. And I love the flavors, the diversity, the color. I eat by the rainbow. I like the phytonutrients. I love nutrient dense foods. I make everything from scratch. So I know the product from the time it's the seed or the baby chick or the goat all the way to the final product. And I've made it myself. So I know what's in it. Now, for some things we can't help, like the chemicals that they're dumping down on us and nanoparticles. There's just some things we can't help. But I think if we do our part, we are relatively healthy. And quite frankly, for my age, people are amazed at what I'm able to do, and that's because of my food. And I can tell you a cute little story about that. Actually, my husband was killed 3 years ago, and they did an autopsy on him, and because they figured that they wanted to get to the bottom of who killed him or how he was killed. And it turns out when they did the autopsy, they came back and the coroner told me he had the organs of a young man, like 20-year-old. And that's because of the food that we were eating. And he actually would sneak Cokes at work or some Kentucky Fried Chicken every once in a while. And I never would. And he kind of laughed at me. He humored me. I mean, we ate really good. But every once in a while, he'd sneak over there to the gas station across the street and pick up some junk food. But so even with that, he had the organs of a young man.
So that's extraordinary. You are well aware of the fact that the processed food supply has been weaponized. They deliberately put things in the food that alter hormones, hormone disruptors, plasticizers. They put things in there that give you cancer, such as sodium nitrite in processed food. They put things in there that are heavy metals like arsenic and all the so-called gluten-free foods. The processed gluten-free is usually made with high arsenic rice, by the way. So I know you're well aware of this, but the average person out there may not understand that you can die at age 35 from eating processed food, or you can live to 95. It's a choice, and it affects you. It affects your mind, not just your body. I know you know that. I'm just kind of reminding the audience.
So there's another thing that we have to factor in. So the sun has gone silent, and a lot of people are unaware that space weather impacts their health. And so we are in a time because the sun is quiet and our magnetosphere, which is our barrier against all the things coming to us from space, is crashing. We actually have entered the sixth extinction level event. And so all these cosmic rays are flooding into Earth, and they can kill a 25-year-old deader than a hammer in a second during these times when the sun is silent. And it can put you into a rage. It can affect your microbiome where you don't process food. If you have a chronic disease, it can flare it up. And so I studied NASA and what they had to say, and they said that the first people that are going to die during these cosmic ray events or solar storms are people that eat fast food, processed food, and don't get nutrition in their diets.
You're exactly right. Again,
okay, I'm going to end it. I gotta charge my phone up now. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you later. Peace.
Position